Hello and welcome to the Motivated by Love podcast, a podcast designed to help Christian young adults navigate relationship anxiety and relationship OCD. I'm your host, Ksenia, a certified life coach, and I'm so excited to talk to you today about pride, shame, humility, and confidence, and how the understanding this new perspective can really help you in your relationship and help you with your anxiety. Now, these might sound like a lot of words, right? Pride, shame, humility, confidence. But understanding this perspective really will help you and will break down all of it. Now, a couple years ago, I remember really pondering this question of how can I be confident without being prideful? I thought about this for a really long time. How can I be confident without being prideful? I thought that the more I increased in confidence, which is a good thing, the easier it would be for me to be prideful. And I listened to a podcast a couple years ago by Jody Moore, where she talked about pride, shame, humility, and confidence. And her perspective answered my question and really changed my life and the way I looked at myself and the way I looked at others. So go check out her podcast if you want to learn more about this backstory. But I want to share today some of the things that I learned and how it also can impact us in our relationships. So the idea that the more we increase in confidence, the easier it'll be to be prideful shows a misunderstanding of what true confidence is and what true pride is. And so first I want to start by defining all four of these words. You, like I said, you might be like me and think that confidence and pride are two sides of the same coin. However, I think that they're opposites. And I believe that pride and shame are the ones that are really similar, that are two sides of the same coin. Now, hear me out. Let's start by defining pride and defining shame. Pride, at its most basic definition, is where we think we're better than someone else, or when someone thinks they're better than someone else. Shame is when someone believes that they're worse than someone else. Now, both pride and shame operate on this untrue belief that humans are better or worse than other humans, right? We believe that some people are better than other people. Some people are worse than other people. We kind of have this ranking system in our heads. And you might notice this with dating, that you rank people. You rank guys you want to date or girls you want to date as being better or worse than others. And you think that people judge you and rank you as being better or worse than other people. And this is the belief that we want to change. The truth is that all humans have the same worth. No human is ranked better than any other human. Now, hear me out. I know logically that makes sense, but when it comes to dating or maybe ourselves, it's a little bit harder to believe, right? We might think that if we are kinder, we're ranked higher. Or if we are clean and tidy, we're ranked higher on a list of desirability and of worth. But what I want to propose to you today is that all of us have the exact same worth, every single human on the planet. We might choose to do different things, but that doesn't change our worth. Every human is ranked the same to God in terms of their worth. Now, you know how I said that pride and shame are they're two sides of the same coin. We can also see this because they both want to hide. Let's say you have an insecurity. Maybe you have a tendency to be messy. Shame would want to hide. So it might look like never inviting anyone over to your house because it's messy. Or never giving anyone a ride in your car because it's messy. Right? You feel a lot of shame. You feel like you're less than, and you don't want anyone to judge you. So you don't want to let them see this insecurity and weakness that you have. When we're prideful, we still hide. It's just in a different way. We might hide by lying or by overcompensating. So someone who has a tendency to be messy might tell all their friends how much they love being clean and just like talk about it over and over, almost draw more attention to it. And maybe they will like have a messy house, but then they'll clean their car and take their friends for a ride and just to show them how clean they are, right? Maybe they act like they're very clean. It kind of makes me think, you know, the boy if you've seen the Polar Express, you know, the boy who's like the know-it-all. He's who I think of when I think of pride, right? This boy pretends like he knows everything. And sometimes I wonder, like if we were going to psychologically, like pick this boy's brain apart, I wonder if he's scared of not being smart enough. If he thinks that his worth is dependent on being smart enough, getting attention from being smart. And so he acts like he's super, super smart. Someone else who might think that their worth is dependent on being smart might hide and never talk in class. This would be shame. But both of them are trying to hide. They're trying to hide that insecurity of being afraid that they're not smart enough. So you can see here that how similar pride and shame both are. You can also see in the example about the know-it-all boy versus someone who stays super quiet in class because they feel shame, that both of these people, both of these kids, have this idea of rank, that some humans are worth more than others. So, what is the opposite of pride and shame? Now, this is where humility and confidence come in. Both humility and confidence rely on the premise that all humans have the same worth, no matter what they do. If you're clean, messy, kind, unkind, every human has the same worth. And not one human is ranked higher than any other. Someone operating out of humility knows what their weaknesses are. They know that they have weaknesses, that that's a part of being human. However, they don't shame themselves for it or overcompensate. They just know that every human has weaknesses. And they're confident because they know that they have the ability to change and grow. And they know who gives them strength. They know that God is the giver of all of the good things. And they know that they can rely on God. So, for example, sometimes I don't always say the right thing in a conversation. And I know that. I know that that's a weakness of mine. But I'm confident because I know that God still loves me. And I know that God will help me increase and get better at that. And I also know that He can do some damage control, right? That He will also comfort and help the people in the conversation that maybe I offended a little bit. Having humility and confidence looks like knowing your weaknesses, but knowing that God gives us strength. And it's this amazing place where we're actually able to achieve so much more and be so much more creative because we're honest with ourselves and we have so much potential to grow and become. So let's take learning. Just like how we talked about the know-it-all kid and the kid who just is quiet in class out of shame, never talks. Someone who has humility and confidence might show up in class and raise their hand and say, I don't completely understand this topic. Can you explain it again? And maybe they say a little prayer for God to help them understand. This is such a beautiful space to live in, this space of humility and confidence. This person understands that their worth isn't dependent on whether or not they understand the material, but they want to create a life where they do understand. So, how does this impact dating and relationships? A lot of the time when we're dating, we have a tendency to rank people, right? We might think that some people are better or worse than others. That's operating out of pride and shame. So when we're dating, our partners kind of become an extension of us in our brains. And so not only do we feel like we have to show up perfectly, we feel like our partner has to show up perfectly as well so that people don't judge us or like rank us lower, right? And it's really easy, well, it can be easy to be in charge of ourselves, to make sure that we micromanage ourselves and we show up perfectly so that people rank us well and so that we rank ourselves well, right? If I get all ready and say all the right things and show up at a party, I might rank myself higher than someone who just shows up in sweatpants and is quiet. And I also, if I operate in this space of ranking, I'll think that other people rank me higher. Now, it can be easy to micromanage ourselves, but add a partner and it becomes so hard because all of a sudden you have to micromanage someone that you don't have total control over to show up perfectly so that other people, so that it reflects well on you and other people rank you well and think that you're good enough, and so that you rank yourself well. A lot of the time we think that what our partner is like reflects on our own worth, right? So some of my clients have really been obsessed about their partner's attractiveness and whether or not they think their partner is attractive. They loop and loop and loop on this. And what's going on underneath is a fear that they themselves aren't attractive enough. It's almost like they are relying on their partner to help them be attractive enough. I noticed this in my relationship with my husband when we were dating. I used to really obsess over his spirituality. And the crazy thing was, I thought that I was spiritual enough. I just didn't think that he was. And so I was like, no, this doesn't reflect on me. It doesn't reflect on what I believe about myself. I'm not projecting because I am good enough and he's not. Well, the more I got to understand myself, the more I realized the only reason I thought I was good enough spiritually was because I had set this bar, this really high bar of what it meant to be good enough spiritually, right? They read their scriptures for a certain amount of time every day. They never miss their prayers. They worship this often every week. They listen to this kind of music. They watch these kinds of movies and consume this kind of media. And I had a really strict bar that I had created for myself to be good enough. And according to my standards, I was meeting all of those standards. And I didn't think that my partner was. I didn't see him reading his scriptures every day. And so my brain said that he must not be good enough spiritually. The interesting thing is that I was still operating from a place of insecurity. Instead of shame, I was operating from a place of pride. Just the fact that I had this really strict bar to achieve showed that I was still ranking people. I had just decided that I was good enough. But the problem was still there. I was still ranking people. And if I missed a day of scripture study, all of a sudden I flipped into shame and I wasn't good enough. And I projected all of this onto my partner, which is where so much of the anxiety about his spirituality came from, because I was trying to micromanage him so that he would be good enough. The key was when I decided to operate out of humility and confidence instead. When I got rid of the bar, when I decided that people had the same worth no matter what. When I recognized that, guess what? I'm a human, and some days that means I miss my scripture study. And I'm confident in who God is and that God understands me, and that He will give me strength to accomplish all of the things I need to. Right? And I recognized that my partner had weaknesses, but that he knew who God was and was striving to have a relationship with Him. And what used to be very black and white, my ranking, right? My ranking was very black and white. It became something that was less focused on the exact things that we did and more focused on our relationship with God, which was so fluid and so much more full of gray area and so full of unconditional love. And instead of caring that my partner didn't read his scriptures every single day, I cared more about what his relationship with God was like and what my relationship with God was like, instead of judging myself and ranking myself for the things I did or didn't do. And this was full of confidence and humility. So, hopefully this is helpful. But my challenge for you is to start recognizing when you're operating from a place of ranking people. And then to see if you're on the pride side or the shame side. Then my challenge for you is to step into more humility and confidence. Knowing that you have weaknesses and that your partner has weaknesses, but recognizing what's the most important. Recognizing that God is the one who gives us strength and helps us become. As always, thank you for listening. And feel free to message me if you have questions about this. My Instagram is @ChriseniaClaireCoaching. I would love to chat more and explain more about this if it was a little bit confusing. And also feel free to leave me a review. Every single one helps. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you next week.